As we've implemented curly with classes, we've talked about examples where we have conceptually a subclass, like posin3d, and it's a subclass because we've copied down the x and y fields and added a z field, and we've replaced the mdist field with one that changed to the old one and just kept the same addist. And we could keep the same either by doing a static call or just by copying the implementation down, either way. So you can simulate subclasses here, but the subclasses are not known to the curly layer. Instead, the programmer is using a pattern of duplicating the fields and copying down the methods to implement inheritance. What we're going to do now is add a new layer to curly, add a new curly dialect that adds implementation inheritance. So we're going to change class so that it has this keyword extends after it, and then you always put the name of a superclass. The class object is built in and has no fields and no methods, so you can always use that when declaring a class. Or in a class like posin3d, you can name some previously defined class like posin. And when we do that in this new version of curly, we only name the fields that are new. So the intent is that posin3d has x and y here as well as z. And when we do new posin3d, the 1 and 2 are mapped to x, and the 3 is mapped to z. Also, posin3d has an addist method, so even though we didn't write one down here, because it extends posin and posin has an addist, then this addist method will also be used for posin3d. Finally, we have the super keyword, where mdist wants to chain to the superclass method while still refining it. Then we'll use super instead of a static send. So here is the new grammar for curly. In class, we have symbol, but also extends symbol, another symbol for another class's name here. And instead of static sends, we have super down here. We're not going to make an interp directly on this new dialect of curly. Instead, what we'll do is compile curly with inheritance down to curly without inheritance and use our existing interpreter for classes without inheritance. So for a class that extends object, the compilation doesn't have to do anything except drop the object. For a class that extends some other class, then the compiler has to do a number of things. It has to copy down the fields of the superclass into a revised definition of this new class posin3d. It needs to change any super calls to send calls. So where we had super mdist here, that means mdist of the posin class. And so we change it to send of mdist in the posin class. And finally, this compiler will need to merge and override methods. So posin3d is supposed to get an addist method, so our compiler will just copy down the addist method from the superclass down to the subclass. Meanwhile, it'll have to notice that mdist is replacing the existing mdist, so this one shouldn't be copied down, it's just replaced as part of the merge.